Hey guys, today we're going to be changing the spark plugs on a 2008 Jeep Liberty. This particular vehicle has coils for each individual cylinder. This is a V6 engine, 3.7, and you have your three coils here and there's three over here. Some of these Liberties, I think it's newer ones, have the one coil will supply for two cylinders, but on this one there's an individual coil for each cylinder. So what we're going to do first, we're going to remove the coil, and that's a 10 millimeter nut there. We're going to take that off and pull the coil off and unplug it, and that'll give us access to our spark plug. So I'm just going to remove this. Make sure you don't lose the nut. Okay, and all you have to do is pull directly straight up, and it'll pop right off. And to get the plug off of the coil, you just push down here and pull out, and it'll pop off. And there's your coil, and that's where the spark plug is. If you can get a shot right down there, that is where the spark plug is, down in there. You can just see the top of it probably down the hole there. And one of the major things that we're going to make sure we do before we even pull that plug out is I'm going to take compressed air and blow that hole out to make sure that no sand or anything falls down when I pull the spark plug. When I turn the spark plug out, no dirt is going to be dropping into my cylinder. So right now I'm just going to grab my compressed air here, and I'm just going to blow it out. As you can see, there was quite a bit of sand and dirt built up around there. So now that now the coil's off and I've blown it out, I have a 5/8 plug wrench, and this one here also has a rubber retainer, I guess you call it, inside that it holds on to the plug so you can pull it straight up. And you're going to need a long extension to get down there to get onto the plug. So, okay. I've always used manual tools for doing stuff like this. I've seen guys use air tools and that. I just don't feel comfortable using air tools on this kind of thing. I like to be able to feel how it's coming out and whether or not the threads are binding or anything like that. So, because I've seen threads be stripped in these heads, and it's not something you want to happen. Okay, I'll turn this straight out, pull out, and there's your plug. Now this vehicle here, the person that owns it didn't know the maintenance history of this, or when the last time the plugs were changed, so he just told me to go ahead and do it because it was running a little bit rough. So we're gonna just pull these out and just put new ones in. It's a good idea to actually stick with the same type of plug that the manufacturer put in. Like in this instance, Jeep, I believe they ran NGK, so that's what I'm going to be replacing it with. And as I get everything set up here for put the new plugs in, these are the NGKs, and I got them at an auto parts store, and I asked them to look up the gap, and the gap for these ones are 44 thou. And so you can just use a gap tool like this one here, and you can adjust your gap, and then you can put your plugs back in. So alright, now we have our spark plugs out of the package here. Now we just have to gap them before we put them back in. A good rule of thumb is to take the old plug that you've taken out and just compare them to the new plug to make sure that the reach is the same, so you're not putting in a say for example they gave you a wrong plug and it has a longer reach, and there's a possibility it could hit the top of the piston when you start your engine. So it's a good idea just put them side by side and look, and these plugs here, they look identical and the part number is the same, so I'm pretty confident these are the right plugs that I'm putting in. So my part supplier told me that the spark plug gap is 44 thou, so that's that gap there. So I'm just checking them, and they're good. See, with the platinum plugs, you really have to watch that they're in your engine a lot longer, and they can be harder to get out of your engine block and out of your head. So you really got to watch the threads, that you don't wreck the threads in the engine when you're taking them out. But this first plug I took out came out really nice. So now we're going to put them back in, and we're going to use our extension and our plug wrench here and put it back in. So this is where this spark plug socket comes in handy, with the rubber piece inside. So when I put the plug in there, it's going to hold on to it while I drop it down in, and it's just not going to fall down in there, so it's going to hang on to it. The one thing to watch when you do pull this off, I've seen one car that somebody traded in once because they couldn't figure out why it wouldn't run right anymore. The rubber thing had stayed on the spark plug, and then they shoved the plug wire back on, and it never connected correctly, and they ended up trading the car in because they thought they had a bad motor, and it was the rubber piece out of the spark plug socket. So okay, so we're going to put these in now. So again, we've blown out the hole to make sure, like before we took the plug out, we blew it all out so no dirt or sand or anything will fall in there. So I'm just going to drop this down, straight down into the hole. And a good idea is to just turn it to make sure it threads down into the hole nice and even, and just thread it down till it's finger tight. Okay, and we're almost there. Okay, now it's hit. I'm going to put my ratchet on here. Now I'm just going to snug it down. Now it's hit. And I usually just, you can torque these, you can use a torque wrench, and I think it's around 15 foot-pounds. But I've been doing this for quite a while, and I just snug them down like that, and that's good. Now I'm going to put the coil back on, and what I do with the coils, or with the boot that goes over top of the spark plug, I use dielectrical grease, because I don't know if anybody's changed plugs before and they've had spark plug wires ruined because they're stuck to the spark plug and you can't get them off, and you end up pulling the wire right apart inside the boot. So I just put a little bit of dielectrical grease in the boot, and what I do is when I put it down there and set it down onto the plug, I just slide it down and I just move it around a bit to kind of lubricate it where the plug and the boot meet, and then I slide it right down onto the bolt there and just push it down till it clicks. And there you go. And I can click my wire back on, and I can put my 10mm nut back on. And again, that's not a big bolt nut there, so just snug it down, and that's good. Okay, now when I go to do the other side, I'm going to remove this snorkel and get it out of the way, because there's nothing worse than trying to fight something that's sitting directly in your way when you're trying to get the plugs out. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish this side. Okay, now I finished this bank, which is pretty easy on these motors. This is a little more difficult, but it's, if you move like the air snorkel out of the way, it'll make things a lot easier. So you just loosen off 2 clamps, which I've done already, and just pop this off, and we'll just move it out of the way. And I'm just going to put a clean rag in here so nothing falls down in there. And the most difficult cylinder to get at is this back rear cylinder here, but getting at it with the proper extensions and everything shouldn't be any problem. It's the heater hoses are in the way a little bit, but It's pretty straightforward. It's just like the first cylinder I did on the other side. I'm just going to take off my coil, and then blow everything out, and then remove the spark plug, and just compare my spark plugs, and then make sure that my new plug is gapped properly, and then put it right back in and snug it down, and then just do everything back up again. So anyway guys, that's how you replace the plugs in a 2008 Jeep Liberty.